President Joe Biden appeared before Congress today as tension continues to rise around the national security bill. Republicans and Democrats are both raising their concerns about the national security package to the point where its future is certainly in doubt. This comes after House Speaker Mike Johnson continued to relay his criticisms of the bill earlier today, saying it fails to address the current situation.
It's not a border security bill. It doesn't do anything of the sort. In fact, in our view, after a careful, thoughtful review of this, we believe that if those provisions were to make law, it might actually make the situation worse.
Joining in the effort and expressing his displeasure for the bill, Nebraska Senator Pete Ricketts says he intends to vote no on it. He says, quote, "The bill doesn't get the job done. Instead, the lead Democrat negotiator is boasting about how under this bill our border never closes."